Teamwork. Good work. Okay, you go first. Okay, who am I? I'm Hap Wilson. I'm an artist, writer, explorer, map maker, international fellow of the Explorers Club, fellow of the Royal Canadian Geographic Society. All that really is incidental to kind of the lifestyle I've chosen. I'm not corporate material, never was, never will be. You know, I always barked at our kids when they went to the bus stop in the morning. I said, fight the power, question authority, and that never really got me anywhere in the corporate world. So I had to find something else. So canoeing and art was my thing, and it led me to this magical place up in Temagami, and that's my life in a nutshell.
And I'm Andrea Wilson, and when Hap barked at the kids and said question authority, I would always say respectfully. And that probably has to do with my background in ethics. I was an academic at some point in time. I also came to canoeing here in Temagami at a very young age. 1989 was when I was introduced to the area. I'd been paddling since I was a young girl, loved it, couldn't get enough of it, spent many years in the paddle sports industry, taught skiing in the winters, did spend a few years teaching at Laurentian University in the ethics department, loved that as well, but I found myself back here in Temagami and creating and hosting at Cabin Falls Ecolodge.
Yeah, I started canoeing at an early age, aided by an elder bushman from the Curve Lake Reserve, and old Charlie taught me bush skills and canoeing. My father was making survival movies back in the 1950s for the Department of Lands and Forests, so that sort of kick-started sort of the magic behind canoeing and wilderness craft, and that led to exploring different areas, map making, book writing. Was all things that because I couldn't fit into the mainstream anywhere, nor did I want to. I wanted to do my own thing, and freedom was a big thing with me. And on the lighter side, you know, I did get a stint with Hollywood teaching Pierce Brosnan how to paddle a canoe and throw an axe and a knife. That was my opportunity to tell Richard Attenborough, the producer, that his movie was like way too Hollywood. You know, they wanted to vault Pierce Brosnan over a 40-foot waterfall, and I said, no, you know, Grail would not have done that in real life. So anyway, that was, you know, a fun part of what I've done in the past.
So besides paddling and skiing and academics, probably one of my greatest passions in life, besides my husband, is design. And I am so fortunate to be able to incorporate that into my life at Cabin Falls. I can pick out the flowers, fly them in, paddle them, portage them. I get to play with materials and work with exterior and interior design work. And it fills that sort of creative artistic niche that has always been a part of me.
I think a part of the passion of paddling and a responsibility we all have, and one thing in my life when I had the opportunity to cover a lot of area by canoe was I saw a lot of beauty. And I also saw a lot of beauty being disrupted or destroyed by industrial intrusion into the wilderness. And I thought it was part of my responsibility as an individual to do something about it. So I got involved in the environment. Almost at the same time, Greenpeace was actively involved in on the West Coast. I got involved in Temagami area in central Canada here, and it was 1972. Maple Mountain was a big issue. The government wanted to make it into a ski hill, a national ski hill. Of course, it was known as Chibejing, place where the soul spirit dwells, to the Temagami and Anishinaabe people. So it was a religious site. That led to a lot of other groups being formed. I co-formed the group Temagami Wilderness Society, which became an international issue. And today, Andrea and I both are on the board for Earth Roots, covering various campaigns, including Temagami here still.
And I got involved in activism in 1989 when the blockades were happening in the Temagami area. I've been involved in helping preserve wild spaces since then. Initially, when I got involved, I wanted to be gung-ho. I wanted to chain myself to a bulldozer. I was young, I was passionate, but my mother wouldn't let me. She allowed me to stay at camp and cook chili for all the real protesters. But I did my part, but over the years, I certainly hope that I've made a difference in preserving wild spaces.
So the story you're just about to hear is Andrea's story.
Andrea's version of the story.
Mine might be a little bit different.
So back in 1989, I took a whitewater canoeing course, and Hap happened to be the instructor. Shortly thereafter, hired me to be an assistant guide for the summer, and on the Des Moines River is where we fell in love. We ran an outfitting company for 3 years together. I was young, I didn't realize what I had in a partner. I broke his heart, and I left for 18 years, but I did come back. And since then, we have been building and creating this sanctuary here at Cabin Falls.
So here's my story, okay? Andrea did apply for a job as an assistant guide after doing a whitewater clinic, and I thought that was great.
Why? You actually called me.
Yeah, well, I did. Well, I did call you. I think several times, maybe. I actually pleaded with you to take the job. So here we're on our first adventure, 2-week adventure in Quebec, and we get deposited on a lake by a float plane. And Andrea says, well, I forgot my tent, so can I bunk in with you for this trip?
Okay, so the real story is, we get to the air base, the pilot says you have way too much gear, so Hap decides to send a tent back to the outfitters. In his mind, so he tells me, he was hoping that the 2 male clients would actually share a tent, but when we got out on trip and to the campsite, the clients insisted they have their own tent. So Hap looked at me and said, oh, well, do you mind bunking in with me?
Yeah, well, I did have to pay off the clients because, so this would all work out in your favor here.
Yeah, and here we are today. While hosting at Cabin Falls Ecolodge, we have a lot of guests ask us how this place came to be. So we thought we'd design a series to share our story with you. This first episode is basically about who we are as individuals.
Okay, enough about us right now. Let's, I think, take a break, and I'd like to tell people about how I first came upon Cabin Falls.
The way you first came across
Sure, why not?
Across Cabin Falls. How about the way I first came across Cabin Falls?
Go ahead.
So we come in May, it's 50 kilometers in, we're paddling against a headwind.
Across the 2-mile portage,
across the
Dead
2
Man's
mile,
March, right?
2 mile portage, upstream, against current. We get to the final portage, and there's this torrential amount of water coming down the falls. The portage starts at the beginning of the falls. Hap grabs a canoe, takes off across the portage. I pick up the 100-pound pack, the paddles, the life jackets, all the extra paraphernalia. I start making my way across a slopey bedrock with tiny little footholds. And the water's spraying up on this rock. I slip, I lose my footing, I slip, I grab on with 3 fingers.
Okay, wait,
there's boiling water.
Okay,
I think I'm going to die.
No, let's save that for the next episode. And I think people would like to know more about Cabin Falls and why it's the most unique place in Canada.
Agreed.
Yeah.